The new 5th generation Camaro is powerful proof that the factory hot rod is back and the performance aftermarket is hot on its trail. We recently discovered in here how a bolt-on supercharger with just a little boost can add well over 100 horsepower to the car's L99 V8. Of course, the supercharger can set you back $6 to $7 grand. Quite a hunk of change, especially if you're also making car payments. We thought we'd try some other performance parts on this 2010 model here and see what kind of gains we get on a lot leaner budget. So what are we using? Well, for one thing, this Hypertech Max Energy programmer custom made for the 6.2 liter. Then an air raid cold air induction kit, followed by these JBA stainless steel headers and some ignition wires to go with them. We'll explain that a little later. Plus an American Thunder exhaust system from Flowmaster. Total tab for all this stuff, a little over $2,300. Now the baseline run we just laid down was 324 horsepower, 333 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheels. That's what we got to beat. To install the air raid kit, we first go inside the trunk to disconnect the positive battery terminal. Then under the hood, remove the breather hose and loosen the throttle body hose clamp. We unscrew the mass airflow sensor from the inlet tube and set it aside. Next, disconnect the factory air box, remove it, and save the grommets for reuse. Now, with the new box upside down, bolt up the kit's lower bracket with a bumper attached, then install the factory scoop into the new box. There's a ground lug on the driver's side, which you need to remove and save, and in its place goes this side bracket.
Now time to install the new cold air box and reinstall the ground lug through the box and side bracket. Bolt the air filter adapter, install the coupler to the throttle body, and join them with the new 4-inch diameter inlet hose. Then we can install the mass airflow sensor, and it's important to use the new screws from the kit. Using a new breather tube, connect it to the NPT barb fitting. Now attach the filter to the adapter.
Well, that's it for the kit, and this weather stripping they included will seal against the bottom of the hood when it's shut.
To make the Camaro exhale better, we're going to remove the stock exhaust starting with this cross member. Then with these couplers unbolted, everything from the cat's back comes off in one piece. Then after disconnecting the O2 sensors and unbolting the exhaust manifolds from the top, we can pull both cat pipes and the manifolds out together from below. While the exhaust is out of the way, we're going to install something extra we ordered that wasn't among the parts Joe showed you earlier. That is, after we remove the factory automatic transmission.
PTC now makes a 6L80E 10-inch torque converter for the Camaro, and it's helping guys shave almost a second off their 8th mile ETs. Now inside the billet cover, they've installed special needle bearings and steel splines, plus it's furnace brazed and comes with a hardened hub for durability. Before prepping it though, we want to check it against the stock converter to make sure the bolt holes line up.
We're good, same dimension.
Then we can fill it with trans fluid and lube up the hub with lithium grease. When mating a converter to a transmission, be careful not to damage the front seal and bushing. Then with more grease on the converter pilot, we can reinstall the transmission. Our JBA headers installed next. They're built with 1 3/4 primaries, one-piece laser cut flanges, and their patented fire cone merge collectors. Now JBA recommends their power cables as a companion upgrade, first for the spark energy they allow, and also because their 100% silicone jackets resist high heat.
With the Camaro back up, we'll need to reinstall the factory cat pipes before installing the Flowmaster system, which starts with this 3-inch Scavenger X pipe designed to improve mid-range torque. After using couplers from the kit, the next set of pipes feed into 2-chamber mufflers, which are finished off with 4-inch polished tips. Before we let the car down, here's something you need to know about if you ever plan on working on a new Camaro's transmission or torque converter. Now GM considers this a sealed unit and it doesn't need servicing for 125,000 miles. Now when we dropped the converter, we lost some fluid. Now there's not a dipstick or a fill tube for the transmission, but check this out. On top of the tranny is a little plug with a plunger that allows you to remove it. Then you can use a pump to replace the lost fluid.
We're parking the car back on the dyno, but before our final run, we've got one more thing to pull out of our bag of performance tricks. I guess by now, most people know that a programmer like this one from Hypertech doesn't make horsepower, it frees it up. Now, the engineers at Hypertech will take a car just like this one to their facility and then basically teach a tuner how to optimize spark timing and the air-fuel mixture from idle all the way up to full throttle. Now, this max energy tuner has all kinds of adjustable features too for things like the rev limiter, shift points, and so on.
After warming the engine up and a few runs, our reprogrammed computer and engine are syncing up pretty quick. Let's see what it's got. 341's a respectable number.
Okay, after 3 follow-up runs, we'll come here and check it out. Peak horsepower in that follow-up was 351 compared to 324 for the baseline, but I want to look at 5,400 RPMs. That's a difference of 34. Pretty good. Now for torque, we made 356 compared to 333, but here at 5,100 RPM, we've got a difference of 37. So considering our budget, we're pretty happy with that, and you'll be even happier out on the pavement where you can feel that torque converter as well. Well, coming up on horsepower, I don't really have a clue, but we'll figure something out. Stick with us.
Hey, this time we've got an engine project for you Ford guys on a budget. We're going to show you how to build a respectable and reliable 302 for about $2 grand. And since we're all about horsepower, we're going to use the dyno to show you some performance options.
This time our starting point's a reman long block like this that you can pick up for about $1 grand or so these days. Of course, the things that you have to add to one are an oiling system, a balancer, and some sort of induction, to name a few. We got that handled with Summit Racing. Now, the fun starts when we compare the 2 different intake manifolds. And even though a long block comes with a cam and valve train, we're going to see if there's a benefit to stepping up to this more aggressive piece from Summit. New set of lifters, roller tip rockers, and a double roller timing set. Anytime you buy a reman like this, the block should have been machined with new stock pistons added and connecting rods reconditioned. Plus, your long block should come with new freeze plugs, bearings, and internal gaskets. Now, before dropping on the pan, we need to take care of some business up front. And to save money, we're reusing a stock timing cover we had and repurposing this Moroso electric water pump. We are using new Felpro gaskets and seals for all the parts we're installing. The new ones so far are stock replacements like this 5-quart pan, as well as the balancer.
One thing that's not a stock replacement though is the intake manifold. And the first one we're going to try out is a Summit Street Strip Stage 1. Now it's cast aluminum and has a basic operating range from idle to 6,000. After running the manifold bolts down and torquing the specs, we're ready to mount the small block to a cart and send it off to the operating room. Now the Summit Street Strip carb is in a feed R302, and we got the 600 CFM version with electric choke and vacuum secondaries.
Okay, that's good.
To save time, we're using our Dyno dedicated MSD Pro billet distributor, since it's set up to run with our ignition system, and it already has wires attached to connect to our basic parts store spark plugs.
We're burning 87 octane on all these runs and did a little 302 homework here. And when this engine left the factory in 1970, it was rated at 220 horsepower, 300 foot-pounds of torque with a 2-barrel carburetor and a cast iron intake. When this thing warms up, it'll be interesting to see the difference. All right, here we go. All right, let's do it.
2 243 horsepower, 317 foot-pounds of torque.
Good. Well, that's 23 more horses, 17 more foot-pounds than the old days.
And really smooth graph, look at that.
All right, to put an accurate price on all that power, let's also factor in the cost of things we had around here to reuse, like the distributor, the electric water pump, the valve covers, and of course that timing cover. According to our math, your total parts bill so far would be $1,287. Add to that the reman long block bill, and you've got a $2,287 engine that makes 243 horsepower. Happy yet?
Well, we're not. Summit's Stage 2 intake manifold is a high-rise design with separated intake runners and an operating range that is 500 RPMs higher than the Stage 1. Plus, it only cost $18 more. So for a few more ponies, it would be worth it, right? All right, 231, 291. Went backwards.
Went backwards.
Went backwards.
What do you think?
Air fuels are good.
Timing?
Bigger intake, no. Bigger intake with this camshaft. It's not meant, for something that big. It's gonna lose power.
Well, that makes sense.
Perfect example of bigger's not always better.
So let's get that Stage 2 off and move on to the next test. For it, we also need to remove the valve covers, water pump, the stock rockers, and push rods. Then we'll pull the balancer and remove the timing cover. Hey, if you guessed a cam swap is next, you got some gray matter between your lobes. It's the Summit Racing hydraulic flat tappet you saw earlier. It's got a little more lift and duration than stock and a tight lobe separation for better throttle response, torque, and mid-range power.
And to ensure proper cam timing, we'll throw on the double roller we ordered. Of course, anytime you swap flat tappet cams, a new set of lifters is a must. We are, however, keeping the stock rocker arms on for the time being. Now we can get back to the Stage 1 intake manifold, and we're almost there. When we removed all those parts for the cam swap, especially the timing cover, some water got into the crankcase. So it's important that we drain all the oil and refill with some fresh before the next run.
Well, that's gonna be a good marriage. Wow.
294 with 332 foot-pounds of torque.
Yeah, we had a 243 baseline.
Yeah, that's impressive right there.
That's
50 horsepower.
Wow.
Almost 50 horsepower.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
We got all that extra horsepower and torque for only $178 on top of our original budget of $2,287. That cam was just the right upgrade for this motor. But as the saying goes, wait, there's more. These comp cam roller tip rockers are self-aligning and stud mounted, which is good, but they also have a 1.7 ratio compared to the stock 1.6. So, does increased lift translate to any increase in power? Well, since we're keeping score with money, the rocker set cost an additional $160.
There we go. See how good your work did.
300.
Sounded really nice.
And
304, 339. There it is. Very cool.
Okay, after 3 runs, we got an average of 302 horsepower with the new rockers added, 339 foot-pounds of torque. So what does all this stuff prove? Well, first of all, you can have a good solid foundation with a reman long block and build on it, have an engine for about $2,200.
Of course, you also saw how adding one high-performance component to a bunch of stock parts can hurt you in more ways than one. You're going to spend more money and lose power.
Guess that Stage 2 belongs somewhere else. Well, best of all, we wound up with a small block that makes impressive, reliable, and still fairly affordable horsepower, and that's what we do around here.
I'm shutting this down.
All right. Hey, welcome back. Well, let's say just like us, you built a motor for your car, got it bolted in, and man, you're ready to hear the results of all that hard work. Well, remember, first things first, you gotta first break in the camshaft. Now, if you were paying attention earlier, we primed the system until we saw oil coming out of all the rockers. So you don't have a special priming tool? Well, not to worry, you can make your own if you got an old distributor lying around like this that you can sacrifice for the cause. First, push the roll pin out and remove the distributor gear. Remove the shaft from the distributor housing. Cut the top part of the housing off using a cutoff wheel or even a saw. Cut off the advanced spring perch from the top of the shaft so it'll fit into your drill. While you're at it, grind the teeth off the distributor gear you just removed. Then after a thorough cleaning of all the pieces, the gear stub goes back into the shaft with the roll pin. And after a little lube, the shaft goes back into the housing. Now to hold the housing in place, drill a hole, add a washer, and a cotter pin. Well, works just like a purpose-built tool, and of course, depending on the distributor, you can make one for a Ford, Chevy, or a Chrysler. Now, it's worth pointing out that on Chevys, this sleeve is not only necessary, but critical for getting oil to both banks of the rockers. Hey, you just saved yourself 20 bucks, but don't spend it yet. We got more stuff to come. Next time you compete at the drag strip, you might want to include a cooler inside your cooler. These racing cooler sets are designed to efficiently cool down your engine between rounds and avoid some of that power-robbing heat soak. Now what you do is freeze this gel insert overnight before the race. Then 30 minutes before the next round, drop the insert into this fire-retardant bag that also has Velcro straps. Then you just place it on the intake or wherever it's designed to go. They've got them for Chevy and Ford engine applications and various parts. For example, this one here is designed to cool down a 5-gallon fuel cell. Well, prices vary, but one thing's for sure, when the competition's hot, you gotta keep your cool.
Can a filter find you more horsepower? Well, that's the idea behind this FlowMax 300 from Ramco Performance Manufacturing. Now, it contains fuel and water separating media that'll filter down to 5 microns. It works with all types of fuels and has a 300 gallon per hour flow rate. Plus, it'll support over 2,000 horsepower. Now, it comes with extra ports that you can use as either a fuel system drain, gauge port, or anything else you'd like. The price, 75 bucks.
Here's a little kit that could save you a lot of time, money, and probably some foul language on one of your next projects. It's called Hose Candy, a hose quick coupler system with everything from CNC rotors to various size barbs, couplers, adapters, well, you name it. You can come up with countless configurations for vacuum ports, fuel pressure regulators, turbos, and the list goes on. The basic Hose Candy kit goes for about 60 bucks. Wow, is our time up already? Well, we gotta go, but here's an idea. Let's do it again, same time, same place. See you then.